The world completely changed a couple of weeks ago. Most of us are locked down with social distancing policies. You've been sitting at home quarantined for how many days now? Maybe you've lost count because the days are all starting to blend together. But it's times like these when focusing on your personal growth and also on your business growth becomes more important than ever. And that's what we're going to discuss today in my monthly Build a Business, Not a Job podcast with Mark Creedon. But it doesn't matter if you're not in business, doesn't matter if you're not a professional or an entrepreneur, if you want more success in your life, and particularly if you're interested in doing it through property, the message we're going to give you today is going to be very, very relevant. Because make no mistake, in weeks to come, you're going to have to 10 times your discipline to stay focused, to stay productive in whatever's important for you at the moment. Now, you're probably feeling the need to level up right now, aren't you? Maybe you're struggling wrangling the kids 24/7. That's probably keeping you from getting the necessary work done at home. Or maybe you're being bombarded with constant distractions that take away from the things you really need to focus on right now. Well, again, today we're going to give you some guidelines. We're going to give you some directions so you know what to do. So if you're struggling at the moment, if all this uncertainty is getting to you, like we all are at the moment, to some degree, you've got a choice to make. Are you going to be a victim? Are you going to be a victim to the circumstances? Or are you going to be a warrior for growth? Now, the quote I read this week really stood out. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. And John Maxwell said that. So you have to choose to grow now more than ever. The world's changing by the minute, but change doesn't mean that we have to accept a fate that we don't want. The time is now to focus on your personal growth and your business growth with intention. And that's what Mark Creedon and I are going to talk about in today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the 5th time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
We're in the midst of a war. We're in the midst of a health war, a unique war, a war where every country in the world is united in an effort to beat the same enemy. It's a silent enemy, a deadly enemy, and it's a crisis that none of us seem to have ever faced before, or certainly not on this scale, but we're going to get through it. And while we're in these more difficult times, we're all facing similar challenges. So today I'd like to have a chat with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind, about the challenges that business owners, investors, entrepreneurs are facing. And even if you don't own your own business, even if you're not what you'd consider an entrepreneur, I think we're all facing common challenges, aren't we, Mark? Welcome, Mark.
Hello, Michael. Good to be here. Unusual circumstances, but still good to be here. We are facing very unusual challenges, but interestingly, the challenges are very similar across the board.
So you're dealing at the moment with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, and actually a couple of quite large businesses as well. What are you finding in your role as a business coach?
Yeah, Michael, there's a couple of things that are really consistent. The first is that there's an element of fear out in the marketplace. There's an element of fear about where this is going to go, where it's going to end, what the outcome's going to be. And I think all of that fear leads into a constant feeling of uncertainty. People out in the marketplace just don't know what the future holds.
Sure, they don't know what the short-term future is going to hold. They don't know what the long-term future is going to hold. They don't know, are we going to go in recession, how it's going to affect their business? Are they going to be able to keep their staff? And for most business people, entrepreneurs, and I guess professionals, they actually like control in their business. I guess that's maybe one of the reasons they've ended up becoming business people rather than entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, one of the things about being a business owner is that you do actually have control. We often talk about moving your business to a level 3, and that's about actually having control over the business. And in lots of ways, that rug's just been pulled out from under them, Michael.
But in this time of uncertainty, in my mind, Mark, there are still some certainties. So let's have a bit of a talk about that, because we're recording this in April 2020, and there are some certainties. In 12 months' time, we will be in April 2021. And somewhere along the way, we're going to get over this. I hope sooner rather than later. And so at some stage, there's another certainty, Mark. There's going to be what I call the survival line, where once you cross that line, there's going to be a whole lot of opportunities. So how you know when that line occurs, I guess it really is going to be when desire, when greed overcomes fear. So at the moment, a lot of people, not all, but some people I'm finding are stuck in panic, stuck in the here and now, stuck in fear. And so I believe those people who get across the line, who have set themselves up to take advantage of the opportunities when they get across the line, are going to be in a much better position for their business, for their entrepreneurship, for their properties, Mark.
Yeah, they are, Michael. I really like the idea of the survival line. And we know that that line is going to come. So the biggest mistake that we can make, I think, is to sit back, wait for that line to come, and then choose to take action at that point in time. Now is the time to take action in readiness for crossing that survival line.
It's got to be the right action, of course, because currently we're seeing some business people take the wrong action. They're panicking. They're letting their good staff go. They're closing down their shops. Now, some have got no control over that because of restrictions at the moment and lockdown, because they can't trade in the normal way they were able to. And I know in Business Accelerator Mastermind, you've got a couple of clients who are in the travel industry or in other industries that have been very hard hit, like the hospitality industry. Yet I know in the sessions you've been having with them, you've changed their mindset. You've actually gotten them to see that even though it's hard now, there are opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with one of our members just before, and he was saying this is actually an unprecedented opportunity to work on the business. I mean, what he said to me was, when was the last time I'm going to have 3 or 4 weeks at home where I'm not recovering from surgery or where I'm not very ill, and I actually get that time to work on my business. There is a mindset shift in place.
Yeah, so you've got to have the right mindset. So I see people falling into, I guess, 3 mindsets. One is the panic mindset, the fear mindset, where, as I said, they actually don't even cross the survival line. And I don't know when that's going to be. It could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months. It's not going to be a year. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. And it's not because I'm an optimist. I've been following not the headline grabbing people in the media, but the more fact-based economists in the media. And you've got to cross that line. So there's other people who are actually just bunkering down the preppers. They're hunking down. They're buying the pasta. They're buying the spaghetti. They're just traveling along there. They're hoping to get across. And Mark, they will get across, but it'll be a year or 2 years when all the world gets normal again. And they're going to maybe be in the same position, or they could be in a worse position because they haven't actually moved forward. They'll have lost a year or two.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I don't know where those people will be. They'll probably be in the same position, maybe a little bit worse. But the important thing is they will have lost this opportunity. So whatever time it is, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, and like you, I'm an optimist as well. And I haven't been listening to Karen on Facebook, who's just recently become an immunologist after being a nail technician for the last 2 years. And there's plenty of those out there, isn't there?
So these people who are preparing for the future, interestingly, as we have and are in our business, and I was just speaking with a very large organisation, a businessman just a short while ago, who similarly has been setting himself up now to take advantage of when we come out of lockdown, when we are back into the marketplace again, because it's what you do now that's going to determine how successful you are when we cross that survival line. So the smart investors, the smart business people, the smart entrepreneurs are setting themselves up in this foundation period. And Mark, I think it's going to come and go sooner rather than later. And they recognise that once we cross over that survival line, there's all of a sudden going to be a whole lot of business opportunities that weren't there before because some other businesses won't be there. Opportunities that weren't there before because there'll be new ways of doing things. So they're already wondering what opportunities are going to be around then that aren't there now. And they also recognise that there's going to be talent there. They're thinking of taking advantage of these people who were let go by maybe not as foresightful business owners.
Michael, I'm speaking with people in the mastermind program now who are doing exactly that. So, A, they're preparing. B, they're thinking very positively about what are the opportunities. And one of the things they are doing is they're looking around at their competitors, and those competitors who are on what you and I call the red line, and those who probably won't be here on the other side of this. And they realize that there's some very talented people working there. So they're already starting conversations with those people so that they can pick up that talent once we are on the other side of that survival line.
Now, I know a lot of people listening to this are interested in real estate and property, and we're seeing this in some of our competitors with buyers agents. We're seeing it with some estate agents. We're seeing it with people in the advice industry who there is going to be a cleaning out, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that the person listening to this, you should be on that red line, because that's the wrong way to think. But I think that's happening, Mark, in people who are focused on the now. They're actually seeing it's the end of the world and they're seeing it all now, rather than people who are seeing this as maybe a chance for a reset of the world, a reset of their business, and they've got a long-term focus. That makes a difference.
Yeah, it does, playing a long game in these times. Those who are seeing it short term, they think that time is very limited. It is the end of the world. They don't see the opportunities that are going to come out of this. And so what they're going to do is probably what people have done. And Michael, we've been around a while and we've seen probably nothing, well, certainly nothing like this, but we've seen a few downturns. There's been the GFC, SARS, a whole bunch of other things we've seen across time. And those who have fallen into that, I'm just going to hunker down, I'm going to hit the panic buttons, actually rarely come out of any of those things on the other side. So there's no reason why this particular situation would be any different, Michael.
And it's a shame, because they don't need to, because there's a health issue which has made the government close down a lot of our businesses. But I'm really impressed also how, I'm not wanting to go into a political discussion, but how the government has actually seen it's also their responsibility, because they've created this problem, to actually get us across the bridge. That's a word they're using. They're creating a bridge. So if you treat your business like a car, and you want it to get you to where you want to get to in the future, keep the battery topped up. Don't let the charge run down. Don't let it run out of petrol. Be ready, lubricated, working, so that when you turn the engine on, whenever that's going to happen, you're going to be able to get going fast.
Michael, when was the last time you checked the battery on your car?
Well, interestingly, while we were away, because my car's got 2 batteries, while we were away, I thought about that, because over Christmas time, I guess it's the last time I'm going to take a long overseas cruise. But I came back and I had a slow trickle charger on my car, just to make sure the batteries didn't die.
It is a very good analogy, though, that we need to be taking this as an opportunity to work inside the business and to improve on how we deliver our service, what the service is, focusing on the core now, and really being prepared for that growth. So taking a leadership role.
Now, Mark, I know that as part of our Business Accelerator Mastermind program, where you actually coach clients partly one-on-one, partly one in a group, you've gone through a list of 9 things people need to do, business owners, entrepreneurs need to do. And I'd like you to share this with the group, with the public, because I think we see part of our responsibility as helping not just those who are our clients now, but helping other Australians. And that's one of the really good things that's happened in this environment. We've recognised the rich, the poor, the old, the young. We're all getting affected by this. There's no discrimination with this virus, so we're all in it together.
It's a really good point you make before we get into those 9 points, Michael, is that something good does come out of all of these things, doesn't it? And I've watched in my own community a stronger sense of community, a stronger sense of support. We've got living across the road from us an elderly couple who I saw in their garden and called out the other day and let them know if they needed milk or bread. I'd happily go to the shop for them. So I think there's lots of those things happening, and that's a nice positive thing to come out of this.
Really interesting. We have a neighbour that we only see once a year at the street Christmas party, who is a widow and a bit older than us. And Pam went and got her shopping and actually got something from the post office for her. And it's actually brought us closer together with this lady who's been living next to us for 7 years, who I only say hello to once a year.
Yeah, interesting. It's great to see those positive, and that's happening worldwide. Those positive things happening. Well, I think in terms of the 9 things that I think you can do in your business right now, there's 3 sets and some subsets under it. So let's hook into those. I think the first thing is to understand that there's fear out there. We've already said there's uncertainty. Fear leads to uncertainty. But in my view, there's 3 types of fear. So the first is if you've got team members, you need to appreciate that they're afraid. And so your job now as a business owner is to do whatever you can to, if you can't remove, to at least relieve that fear. And Michael, that applies whether your team is actually a team that's working in your business, now working remotely, whether they're contractors, whether you're offshoring. This is a worldwide issue. So now's the time to acknowledge that there's fear and to do what you can to try and relieve some of that fear, which is exactly what you've been doing in your business.
Well, I think it's important for them to recognise that it's normal to feel that way, so if people don't feel bad, because unfortunately, out of the isolation, out of the fear, out of the uncertainty, some people are going to suffer with some mental health issues. And I think one of the advantages this year round is that people are more prepared to put up their hand to recognise it. And there's also people prepared to reach out and say, hey, it's okay, I'm prepared to help you. While before there may have been a bit more shame or embarrassment about it.
Yeah, again, just positive things coming out of it. So the first thing is to recognise that your team are afraid, and you're right. How you deal with that is to normalise it, and that will minimise it as much as you possibly can. The next thing is to realise that your clients are afraid. There's a lot of fear going on for them. They don't know what the future holds either. So I think it's a matter now of sharing your experience with them wherever you can to minimise that fear. Whatever good news you've got coming out, to share that good news. And I think also to look at the way that you deliver your product or service. Maybe there's things that you can pivot to change the way you deal with your clients to make life easier for them and at least diminish, if not remove, some of that fear for them, Michael.
Communication is really important. So communicating with your team, communicating with your clients, communicating with potential customers, past customers. I know you've been doing that through Business Accelerator Mastermind. We are in Metropole with our team and with our clients, our customers, our landlords and our tenants, because tenants are customers as well for our property management division. And it's important to keep those lines of communication open.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get a little bit more in a little more detail into that in a second. But you're 100% correct. I think the other thing too, Michael, is that, and you touched on this earlier, just the broader community are afraid. And so you as a business owner, as a leader in the community, I think have an obligation to, as much as you possibly can, to people will be looking to see how is the business reacting. And I always think that you can't really complain when this is over that there's a lack of business confidence if you've actually been feeding that lack during the course of this current situation.
It's interesting because I got a communication from my publisher, who's not going to be listening to this, so I can say it. And over the years, and I've been dealing with Michael since 2006, I've never actually had a business communication with him, but he communicated today to me and I guess all these clients and all these authors, explaining the issues that the book industry is going to have. I'd never thought about that, but people aren't going to bookshops, people aren't going to newsagents and to the airports where a lot of books are bought as well. But he was reassuring me as one of his authors about online books and Kindle and other ways of doing things. So it's good to see all sorts of businesses doing that.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's about pivoting what it is that you do and how you do it to take account for the current climate. And I guess, Michael, that is a nice sort of segue into point 4, which is to actually know your current position. And the 3 things that you need to do in relation to your scenario, first thing is to minimize your risk. I think when things are really good, we often just sort of keep going and we don't often put a lot of time into identifying the risks because we work on the basis that when they come along, they're like a speed bump and we'll work over them. This is a great opportunity now to understand what those risks are and to put some processes in place to actually minimize them during the crisis so that you come out better and stronger at the other end. I think the other thing too, Michael, is you mentioned before about communication and information. If you watched the mainstream media, I mean, let's be honest, the mainstream media are having a field day with this. So the mainstream media are putting lots of information out there. And honestly, if you sat in front of the TV, you could watch all news all day long. So when we're at home, there's a great danger of doing that, isn't there?
There is. Now, the mainstream media is, and there's lots of experts looking for a headline. They're 5 minutes of fame, making all sorts of predictions about recessions, about depressions, about what the unemployment rate's going to be, about what's going to happen to the property industry. This is not a time when it's easy to forecast. In fact, as we keep saying, it's unprecedented times. So you've got to be really careful who you listen to, and particularly for medical advice and health advice, because there are only a few sources that I'm currently trusting, and I'm consciously turning off other sources.
Yeah, so I think as a business owner, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, now's the time to limit the amount of news that you're bringing in. Make sure it's from a trusted source. And then I think that making sure that you're keeping a bit of a balanced view. You can't always just look for the good news. You have to be aware of the bad news that's out there, but there is an element of sort of getting it balanced. And then keeping you up to date and balanced will help get you to the other side. The other thing too, of course, is that that's the communication that you then pass on to your team, your clients, and out to the general public.
Now, interestingly, it's not just the news, but it's also the people you speak to and the people you hang around. So a moment ago when we talked about the three different sorts of people, the ones who are panicking, the ones who are bunkering down, and the ones who are fighting, it's interesting that the language that they use is different. So the people who are panicking in the here, just in the here and now, how terrible it is, it's the end of the world, it's all over, there's no use, there's no continuing on. The people that are hunkering down are doing things and speaking very differently. And the ones who are looking forward to the opportunities, the ones that we are wanting everyone listening to this to be in that category, are talking positively about the future. So it's not just the news in social media or on television, but it's also the friends and colleagues that you're speaking to.
Yeah, it is, Michael, and you can actually identify some of that. So some of the words that I'm seeing that people who are what we would call on either the red line or maybe the yellow line they're using words like struggle, difficult, negative. Whereas those who are on the green line who are looking to push things forward, they're using words like opportunity, plan, strategy. So very simple things that you can look for in language of the people that you're speaking to.
And it's important as a leader, as a business leader, and even for your family to speak positively, to give them good messages, because it's just too easy to get caught up in the negative downward spiral of bad news.
What's the old saying, Michael? Is that misery loves company? I mean, that's what's going to happen if there's bad news out there. People will love to tap into it. One of the things, Michael, that you touched on before was the idea of opportunities, and we know that opportunities abound. Now, it might not be the case that those opportunities exist for you to generate new sales or generate new business right now. But maybe you do have a product that's in demand. Maybe you can change the way you deliver it. Maybe you can change the message that you're putting out there to your marketplace. But what you should be doing is focusing on those green line activities, looking at what are the opportunities that are going to come out of this, so that when we do cross that bridge, you're actually hitting the ground running at that point in time, as opposed to those that are kind of bunkering down now. If they make it to the other side, they'll be starting from a standing start. I'd rather hit the ground running on the other side of the bridge, and I know you would as well.
Well, you'll be months ahead of them, having developed new ideas, new concepts, new products, new ways of marketing, new offers to your clients. But I think the other thing is this is a good time for business people to become a trusted source in their field. So with regard to property, I am very regularly putting out information about how the coronavirus or the epidemic or the pandemic is actually going to affect people, whether it's landlords, tenants. And I'm giving as much free information as I can. I'm not looking for something in the short term. I'm playing the long-term game as well. So you and I are not putting our podcasts or our webinars behind paywalls and capturing things. No, let's just help the community and it'll come around. Good things come around.
Yeah, well, and that's a nice point too. You said before that communication is important, and I just think in this current climate, communication is king. So I think there's three things you can do there. The first thing is to pivot your message. So whatever communication program or marketing plan, whatever you had in place in January, simply no longer applies. People don't want to be sold to now, unless it's a product which is in demand given the crisis. But what they do want to do is they still want to hear from you. One of the things, Michael, that we've suggested to our mastermind members is to actually pick the phone up and make a call. And it's been fascinating to see the feedback that they've been getting from the fact that they've actually picked the phone up and made a call. So now communication is king. Pivot the message. It can just be a communication which is designed to connect, and you need to do it regularly.
I remember you telling me the story about Joe who, after a mastermind message with you, did something he'd never done before. And all of a sudden, in an industry that you think wouldn't be working well, he's got more business that he can cope with.
Yeah, it's that was really interesting. And really, it's a matter now of just going out, letting people know that you're there. And one of the things I've been saying to our members, Michael, is that, and the feedback they've been getting when they speak to their clients, is their clients are going, wow, we actually haven't heard from your competitors. We haven't heard from other people. Nobody's phoned us to say, how you doing? Are you okay? And I'm just letting you know that we're here to support you. So communication absolutely is king, and making sure it's the right message.
Interestingly, we're doing that at Metropole with our landlords and our tenants, as I said. And it's really interesting because somebody, a friend of mine who I was speaking to only yesterday, was saying that his property manager, and he's got quite a number of properties that he's given to his property manager, has had no communication with him, and therefore he assumes not with the tenants either. And he was feeling lost, he was feeling uncertain, and he was wondering what we're doing with our clients that we're looking after. But a couple of times we've kept, before I let you continue on with the messages about communication, a couple of times we've talked about Business Accelerator Mastermind. We've talked about what you do with your clients, how you do things with your clients. So let's take a second just to explain to those people who don't understand what Business Accelerator Mastermind is. What is it? Why did you put this program together?
Michael, Business Accelerator Mastermind is what I like to refer to as a hybrid business coaching program. And it's hybrid because it involves working one-on-one with me, having access to people like you, and also access to other members. So it's one-on-one and has a group component. And that was done quite deliberately because I realized that whilst people can learn, I think, a great deal from you and I, they can also learn a great deal from each other. And we spoke before about the importance in times of fear of normalizing things. So when you put business people together, and one of the things I love about our tribe, as we call it, is that when they do get together, it's kind of superhero capes are left at the door. Everybody's very happy to share. They share their experiences. And I think you put a post on Facebook just recently, it's great to learn from your mistakes. It's even better to learn from other people's mistakes. So the tribe are actually prepared to share the mistakes they've made and learn from others, Michael.
Well, I guess the aim is to help people build a level 3 business. And now it's probably time for a disclaimer. You're my business partner in Business Accelerator Mastermind. You were my business coach for close to a decade. And I liked how much you helped me. And I liked how much you helped my business partners and the other directors at Metropole. I started referring our high net worth clients to you, people who are business people, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are professionals. There are quite a few professionals, physiotherapists, a couple of oral surgeons. And when I saw how much your programs helped them, I thought, hey, I would like to be part of this as well. So while I'm not involved on a day-to-day basis in it, it's not my level of expertise, yes, I do get involved and I do share some of my knowledge about being a business person as well. And I guess our aim is to help people build a business, not a job, without killing themselves in the process. And it's really to build what we call a level 3 business that's not dependent on them. So if you're interested in understanding how you could have the same business coach that I do on your side, why not go to Metropole Mastermind? Now, there'll be a link in the show note, but go to metropolemastermind.com.au, find out all about what we do. By the way, there's a special report there also from Mark about why you should consider being part of the Mastermind group. And Mark, if people would like to just understand, is it right for them? Because there's a lot of people it's not right for. Would you be prepared to give them a 10, 15-minute chat to see how it could work for them?
I'd love to, Michael. I'd love to have that chat. And if it can work for them, fantastic. And if not, hopefully we can find something in that 10 or 15 minutes that they can take away and use to improve what they're doing in any event. And that often does actually happen.
Well, there'll be a link in the show notes, but go to metropolemastermind.com.au and you can find out all about it. Or if you just go to the normal Metropole website, you'll see it as one of the services we provide as well. Now, Mark, I got sidetracked, but I tend to, because you were starting to explain how communication is king. And the first message you gave us is that you've actually got to change now. You've got to pivot your message. What plan you had initially probably isn't relevant today.
No, that's right. I think there's two other really important points. And the first of those two is to actually have a communication plan. So, good communication never just happens. So we were saying before that, members of Mastermind and you and I have had good results, good feedback from picking up the phone and making phone calls. But that's part of a plan, Michael. We've actually locked that into the calendar. We've made it happen as opposed to trying to think it will just happen on the run. So I think need to work out what your message is, how often you're going to communicate, how you're going to communicate, and then make that happen via a plan.
It doesn't just happen. You're 100% right, because even though I have a to-do list and you do, we actually sometimes get sidetracked. And if you actually haven't got it in your calendar, it's just not going to happen.
No, and I think the last point I want to make is the importance of making it proactive. So, in the good times, sitting around hoping that your phone will ring or somebody will walk into your business, or, email is a terrible strategy in the best of times. So it's an even worse strategy if that's possible in difficult times. You mentioned before that your neighbour was saying that their property manager or your client is saying the property manager hadn't contacted them at all. This is now a time to be proactive. It's to get on the front foot. And there is so much value in being proactive in a caring communication. Isn't trying to sell anything. It's just letting you know that you're there. It's a random reach out, which can be completely structured. And what it will do, Michael, it will leave you top of mind. So when we do actually cross this bridge, they're going to remember who it is that reached out to them across the time of the crisis.
Most business people are going to get a level of support from the government, whether it's going to be various of the subsidies or paying some of their salaries, wages. And in fact, their business isn't doing well. They're not going to get a subsidy and probably doesn't deserve it or need it at the moment. So that's okay. So I think the message from today is we have to just build that bridge. The government is supporting us. We've got to get across to the other side. You've got to have your car greased up and oiled up. And if you've got electric battery, charge the battery or whatever it is, so that when you want to start the motor, it's going to, and it will happen sooner rather than later. So if you want to get yourself set, apart from listening to this podcast, go to Business Accelerator Mastermind, and Mark has regular blogs there too, as he does on Property Update. And if you want to get a coach on your side, this is the time to invest in yourself. This is the time to invest in your business. So go to Metropole Mastermind and have that one-on-one chat with Mark. Just see if there's something in it for you. You've probably got the time to do that now, because you may not be as busy doing the other things. So, Mark, thank you very much for those steps of how to move forward in your business. And I look forward to having our monthly Build a Business, Not a Job podcast with you again real soon.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure.
As I said at the beginning, the world is changing by the minute. But that doesn't mean that we need to accept a fate we don't want. This is the time to focus on your business growth and your personal growth. And if you're a property investor, your investment growth by setting yourself up for the next stage of the cycle, for getting across the survival line. And Mark Creedon gave you some ideas about how to do that. So if you'd like to have a chat with Mark, go to metropolemastermind.com.au and find out about his Business Accelerator Mastermind program. Well, it's not just his, I'm his business partner in that as well, and it's what I use to help me grow. It's what our directors at Metropole are all part of, and a lot of other successful business people and entrepreneurs, not just from Australia, actually from quite a few from Southeast Asia, and actually one from the Arab Emirates too. So why not be part of our mastermind to help you get to the next level? I'll be back again in a couple of days' time, because twice a week I bring you the Michael Yardney podcast, but in between you can catch up with me on social media. But if you found this episode useful, if it's helped you, why not share it with another business person, another entrepreneur, another professional who you think would get benefit as well? Because our aim is to help as many people through these difficult times as possible. So once we get to the other side, we're going to enjoy the opportunities that are there. Catch up with you soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?